Minutes after 10 p.m. Central African time, the voice of Alifar Katore taking us to Mali, and that one titled Tore Sukora. If you were just joining us for the very first time, welcome to Heartlines. Sheila Ndikumana keeping you company, and I'm with you all the way through to midnight. A huge thank you has to go out to the team that is the team that is led by Tshepiso Magwetla on Africa World Hour. Catch it tomorrow between 9 and 10 p.m. Central African time. What comes up on the show today is perhaps what you're asking yourself. Since I'm with you for the next 2 hours, perhaps it's important for you to know what we will be speaking on. And the very first thing we'll be speaking on is International Nurses Day. And we're going to be doing this with Howard Caton. And this is the CEO of ICN. Now, the global nursing crisis is deeper than we think. And Africa is at the heart of this problem. And so we're going to be firstly looking at the realities of nurses in the African continent, some strides that have been made, of course, ironing out the challenges and looking for a way forward. And we'll be doing this with Howard Caton, who is the CEO of the International Council of Nurses. Then in the second hour of the show, we're going to be looking at the glow and the glitches, skincare routines during pregnancy. Now, we all know that there's this claim for women's skin to glow. What if you're not on that end of the stick? What if your pregnancy had you have breakouts and all kinds of things? Well, we dive into conversations with Dr. Judy to unpack that. That comes your way in the next 2 hours. Feel free to let us know where you tuned in from. Let us know how you're doing, but also ask your questions to our highly esteemed guests, finding us on WhatsApp +27 63406 9126. For now, let's get some music.
Hey there, this is Palisa Tau, part of the dynamic duo that gives you on the move right here on Channel Africa from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Central Africa time. Well, it's with your help for the past 2 years that we have been a multi-award winning show.
Finally, yeah, we're keeping it on the move in 2025. And yes, I'm the other half of the duo, Benjamin Mushatama, and we're going to keep you going with the great conversations. Turn it up.
Okay. On the Move comes back in 2025 to give you more of the content that made us a Maldo and to deliver that bold, boundary-pushing content that you love. And of course, giving you a ride through the 3 hours of news, views, and entertainment.
Every weekday from 9 to midday Central African time, right here on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Cool.
Let's go.
Heartlines, connecting you with Africa's love culture into the night on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Yeah. sithandwa sami kungenxa yami mina ngiyavuma iphutha ngelami bengenza kangcono sithandwa sami ayihlale phansi ibamba umthetho sithandwa sami mina ngiyavuma iphutha ngelami futhi bengenza kangcono ayingilimele kubuhlungu ngizokhala kuzabani na khona njena mina ngilimele kubuhlungu ngizokhala sabele bani na ayingilimele kubuhlungu ngizokhala kuzabani na sengiyezwa mina ngilimele kubuhlungu ngizokhala sabele bani na
Nighttime radio, just the way you like it, on Channel Africa, where the night comes alive. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph.
16 minutes after 10 p.m. Central African Time. Area Star there with this one titled Rush, released in 2022. Before that, Mau coming in with Ngilimele, and that one alongside Deep Sen, King Tokzin, and Mtunzini. That taken off an album titled The Chosen, released in 2023. Before we get into our conversation, I want to start off with a quote. This by American Ghanaian singer-songwriter and musician Stevie Wonder. Did you know that he does have roots in the African continent? I found that really exciting to learn. This one saying, Mama was my greatest teacher, a teacher of compassion, love, and fearlessness. If love is sweet as a flower, then my mother is that sweet flower of love. And I want us to start off this conversation because we are looking at International Nurses Day, a moment when the world pauses to recognize the tireless commitment, compassion, and resilience of nurses everywhere. Now, but beyond this tribute, this year's commemoration calls for urgent action with newly released State of the World's Nursing Report 2, a collaboration between the World Health Organization and International Council of Nurses. A sobering picture emerges: a global nursing workforce under pressure, yet more essential than ever. Joining us is Howard Catton, who is the CEO of International Council of Nurses and the co-chair of this landmark report. With over 190 countries contributing, the findings are not only comprehensive but crucial, especially for the African region where health demands are rising and the shortages are stark. We are honored to explore the revelations with him and understand what they mean for Africa, the globe, and the future of health systems. Mr. Carton, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Let's start with the big picture. What are some of the most urgent findings from Zone 2 report that you believe the world, especially African regions and nations, should pay attention to immediately?
Good evening to you and happy International Nurses Day to everyone. I know we're drawing to the end of the day, but there are 30 million nurses around the world. So I think there's probably everybody on this planet who does know a nurse somewhere in their circle of friends and relations. The report is a really important litmus test of the health of the world's nurses. As I said, 30 million nurses around the world, but that isn't enough to meet the health needs that we have. The report that the International Council and WHO have put out today estimates that we have a global shortage of 5.8 million nurses. That's a big number, but we explore what some of the reasons are for that shortage. Countries are not investing enough in educating nurses. We need to produce more nurses in every region of the world, but we also need to work equally as hard to retain the nurses that we have. There are some really worrying findings in the report about nurses' working conditions, the lack of support for mental health issues, the increase in violence and harassment and aggression in the workplace, still persistent low levels of pay as well. And these are all important factors to not just attract nurses into the profession, but to hold them in to nursing as well. And this is all important because the population is growing. Health demands are increasing. And in Africa, in South Africa, around the world, nurses make up 50-60% of the healthcare workforce. They're the backbone of our health system. So if we want to improve health for everyone, we need to support the nursing workforce.
Quite some startling stats that you're giving there, startling stats, if you will, Mr. Catton. And I think the one that stood out for me is the lack of investment in the nursing sector. Why do you think that's the case? I mean, you're saying that there's a shortage of 5.8 million nurses globally, right? We know the need for them. 56% of the healthcare sector comprises of nurses, yet we're not seeing that pouring, that investment from government fundamentally. Why are we seeing this?
I think there's a couple of key issues, and you've put your finger on one of them by highlighting, as I have, just the size of the nursing workforce. So for our politicians, our policymakers who hold the purse strings, actually, when they see that number in their country, they may think, this is expensive. If I invest in nurses, it's going to cost me an awful lot of money. And this is a thinking that we need to change. We need to stop thinking about nurses and healthcare as a cost, but think about it as an investment. We know that when we have good quality healthcare, it stops people getting sick, or if they are sick, it helps them to recover more quickly. And when we do that, people contribute to their societies, to their economies, they work. And all of these are really important to drive economic growth and prosperity as well. We released another report from the International Council of Nurses, and we entitled it The Economic Power of Care. We talk a lot about nurses delivering care and compassion and improvements to health, and that's absolutely right. But we don't talk a lot about nurses being drivers for economic growth, but the evidence supports that. And the other key reason, I think, that has held back investment in the nursing profession is we're overwhelmingly a female profession. 90% of the profession are women. We're seeing an increase in the number of men, but it's only gone up from like 10% to 15%. And we know that the perception of the work that women do often does not recognise the economic value and the contribution. There is discrimination, there are deep-rooted inequalities that impact on the nursing profession because it's delivered overwhelmingly by women, and we need to bust those myths as well. Yes, nurses are kind, they're caring, they're compassionate, but they're also highly skilled and educated health professionals who show leadership, who lead research, who are delivering solutions to the health challenges that we face around the world. And we need to reward that, recognise and reward that economically as well.
Mr. Catton, you said that there's high levels of discrimination and stereotypes that need to be done away with. How do we begin to mitigate around that conversation? And I'm asking this because somebody who's listening at home, who has a sister, a friend, I mean, you pointed out that everybody knows a nurse. 30 million nurses is a number of people. How do we begin to change the narrative around this workforce?
I think there are a number of things. I think it's important that nurses and the nursing professions talk about the difference that they make, share the reality of the work that they do. Nurses save lives, they change lives, they improve lives every single day. I'm hugely proud to be part of the nursing profession, but sometimes nurses we may be a little bit shy, a little bit reticent of saying what we do and the improvements, that the changes that we make to people's lives. And I think that we should talk about that more. But we also then need to bring forward the hard evidence. Do you know, it's been estimated by management consultants like McKinsey's that when we have poor health, when there is harm in health care, it can be as much as between 10 and 15% of the GDP of countries. We need to talk about when nurses are supported to deliver great care and they keep people well, they keep people out of hospitals, there's a big financial contribution and benefit. And politicians sometimes say to me, look, Howard, look, International Council of Nurses, because we support nurses, we want to invest in them, but if we do that, how quickly will we see a return on the money that we put in? Again, the economic evidence from economists shows us that you very quickly get 2 or 3 times much back in improvements in healthcare, improvement in your economies when you invest in health. There's economic power. I sort of think about it as, it's care could be the new oil for our economies. We need to change the way that we think about nursing and healthcare.
How that statement, care could be the new oil for our economies. That's a powerful one. Let's talk about some of the findings concerning the continent. Africa saw a reported rise in nursing numbers, but the report suggests that this increase may be due to the improved data reporting rather than actual workforce growth. Why are we seeing, what sort of got you to this understanding?
You're absolutely right. It's look, firstly, it's really encouraging that across the continent of Africa, we saw more countries sending in their data about their nursing workforce. That means that they're counting nurses, they're taking it seriously, and I don't underestimate that as being really important. You know, people have said before that if you don't count something, then it doesn't matter and you don't value it. So the fact that the continent is doing that is hugely important. But at the same time, we know that the healthcare needs of the continent are increasing dramatically, and many African nurses are also being recruited to go and work in other places, to leave their countries in Africa, to leave the continent, to work elsewhere. Places like Uganda, places like Ghana, some from South Africa as well, where nurses are leaving. And the nurses who are leaving often say, and this is in the report as well, look, the reason that we're leaving is because we don't feel that we have good working conditions. The report shows that about half the countries who reported to ICN and WHO didn't have minimum policies in place for working hours and working conditions, that they weren't doing enough to prevent attacks on nurses in their workplace, that there was 40% of only 40% of countries who were saying they provided mental health support to nurses as well. You know, all of us make choices about where we work based on, am I going to be valued, respected, and looked after? Pay is a huge issue. We know that in low-income countries, in middle-income countries, the average salary can be around $4,000 or $6,000 to $8,000 US dollars per year, well below the average salaries that are being paid as well. So countries who are losing nurses, we shouldn't let them off the hook either. We should say, are you doing enough? Are you doing as much as you can to provide safe and decent working conditions? Because that's key to retaining the nurses that you've got. And those nurses are gold. Those nurses are gold. You must be doing everything you can to retain them. But also, those conditions will be really important to attract the next generations into the profession as well.
Howard, that sort of speaks to this year's theme for International Nurses Day, which is Our Nurses, Our Future. Caring for nurses strengthens economies. I do, however, want to discuss the balance, and I suppose this bringing about some level of solution. We're talking about retaining nurses and making sure that they are earning right, that they're protected, that their mental health is catered for, that they're paid correctly, that they serve and have good rotations where they're not 16 hours on their feet. And we're trying to avoid all of this, but all of this needs money. And the argument is that funding isn't present. We're thinking specifically in the context of the African continent. How do we then begin bringing about a solution?
This is a big question, this investment question, because it does need money, and that money is about political choices, choosing nursing and choosing healthcare. And we know around the world that there are competing demands. There's an increase in conflicts, in disasters, countries who are turning to having to invest more money in defense, who are concerned about trade as well. The impact of the recent US decisions to reduce and eliminate the money that's going into USA aid. We've been in contact with nurses in Africa who have recently lost their jobs because the funding for the work that they are doing has stopped. And this is critical work. This is work to support people with HIV, AIDS, malaria, TB programs as well, public health issues. We need the world to recognise the importance of healthcare to, of course, the health of people, but our economies. And we know as well that when healthcare breaks down, it creates division, it creates tension, it contributes to the factors that lead to conflict as well. So it's taking a much bigger view of how important healthcare is. It's not a luxury. It's not a nice to have when the good times roll and the economies are good. It's an essential to give us and to give African countries a road to growth, economic development, to move from being low or lower middle income countries to higher income countries. That all depends on investing in healthcare. And if you invest in healthcare, you have to invest in 50% or more of the people who deliver it, and that's nurses.
The voice of Howard Cotton joining us this evening, the CEO of International Council of Nurses, ICN. And we're discussing the realities of nurses across not just the continent, but the globe at large. Howard, we spoke about mental health, and we sort of touched on the reality that only 40% of the 190 countries that participated in some of your research stated that they provide mental health care for their nurses. What are some of the best practices from the countries that have made strides in supporting the emotional well-being of their nurses?
Some of it is as simple as saying, look, it is okay to say you're not okay. It's okay to say, I'm struggling. I've had a really tough day. I've had to support people through some really difficult times. I've had people who've died, and I've supported those as well. And it's impacted me as a professional, but it's impacted me as a person as well. And when I say that, as opposed to some people think, oh, well, I can't say that because it looks like I'm vulnerable. It looks like I'm not coping. It looks like I'm not a good nurse. Yeah. Actually, it means the opposite. It means the opposite. It means that you have given of your very best, that you care, that you have supported a person as much as you're possibly able to, and you've reacted to that on a human level. And I think that human connection that nurses have with their patients is why nurses are one of the most consistently, when you ask polls of the public, who are the health professions that you trust the most, nurses come out. So I think some of you'll remember during the pandemic, we talked a lot about how wonderful the nurses and health workers were, and we sometimes call them heroes. And actually, I know that was well-meaning. I know what that was well-meaning. But when you call someone a hero, it sort of suggests they have superpowers. Nurses don't have superpowers. They are ordinary people. They're doing extraordinary work, but they are people like you and me. And we need them to be able to be supported and express their feelings as well, and not to have to feel that they, as I said, that they're heroes, or that they're being disloyal or not a good employee if they say that we're not coping. And when we do these things as well, when we give people the support, the value, the respect, it's also really, really important to hold people in the workplace, to keep nurses working as well. The nurses who I speak to and talk to, actually one of the biggest factors that they come back to is like how we need to know that our health systems, our health organisations They hear our voice, they value and they respect us. We know that the health systems around the world are working under huge pressure. We're committed to doing the best that we possibly can, but we're not machines, we're not robots, we're people as well. And some of the very simple things, to give people time out, to let them to speak about their feeling, to offer them support if they need it, not somebody's struggling and that means that we won't offer them a promotion or that they can't go on to senior positions as well. These are all just the very practical things we need to do and the messages that we need to send to hold people and nurses in our health systems.
Howard, what's a really interesting that you made mention of that sort of caught my attention is the reality of feeling like you lose your job because you're vulnerable. I think that's a pandemic on its own across all working forces, but we're seeing a high concentration for nurses as well. Let's talk about mitigating migration. You touched on it. Nurses are leaving their countries of origin for different spaces in order to get better, I suppose, working environments, conditions, the very same things we were talking about. The lesser tax, the more money, the less hours, the ability to be catered for when it comes to your mental health. How do we mitigate as the African continent? What kind of policies can we introduce that would that would safeguard the experience of a nurse in Africa?
So I look at this question, and it's a really hot question and issue because we've seen a big spike in the international recruitment and migration of nurses around the world. And the root cause for that, firstly, is that, there are probably about 7 or 8, well, we know there are about 7 or 8 high-income countries who are driving 70 to 80% of the recruitment activity that we see. These are higher income countries, places like Ireland, the UK, Germany, Canada, the US as well, who have not invested enough in educating their workforce. They then see that they have an urgent demand and they take a quick fix solution to recruit nurses from other countries, and often the countries that they are recruiting from are least able to afford to lose their nurses because they already have fewer nurses per head of population. So those countries who are recruiting, we call on them to be more self-sufficient in the education of their own workforce. But we also say to them as well, if you are recruiting from other countries and you're committed to that recruitment to be ethical and to be fair, if you're taking something, a valuable resource, a nurse, what are you giving back? Because if you're not giving back anything, or if you're not giving back something that's proportionate to what you're taking, people would say, well, that's just stealing, isn't it? So there's a big question for the countries who are recruiting, that if nobody stands in the way of people's right to move and nurses' right to migrate. But if there's going to be a negative impact on the countries who are losing nurses, that it's only fair and ethical that they are proportionately rewarded for that. But that doesn't then let off the hook the countries who are losing their nurses. And I was in Ghana last year and hearing that nurses who've been educated in Ghana may have to wait 2 or 3 years until they got their first job because the country couldn't afford to invest in those nursing jobs in its health system. This is crazy. We have 5.8 million of shortages around the world, but we have nurses who are underemployed or unemployed. And some of those countries would then say to me, do you know, we want to invest in nurses and nursing, but the problem that we've got is that we're having to pay back debt, interest payments on debt to other countries that we have as well. So I think that this, and listen, I'm a nurse, I'm not a global economist, but I think that when you get into the detail of this issue. It throws up some big questions about global financing as well. And if we really want to be able to enable countries in Africa, other countries who are lower or lower middle income countries, to have a pathway to sustainable economic growth, I think that the G20 countries also have to look at what they're doing, the relationships, the agreements, the responsibilities that they have around debt and the repayment of debt as well.
Howard, in your opinion, what are 3 critical actions African governments should take before 2030 to stabilize and, of course, grow their nursing workforce? I know that it's estimated that 60,000 nurses will be the shortage that South Africa alone experiences by 2030.
Listen, this is a really important point, because the report that we've set out today, the path to 2030 will still leave the continent of Africa with something like 70% of the shortages of nurses worldwide. So the continent has to really step up to invest more in its nursing workforce. And I would say, firstly, look at retention. What more can you do to support and hold on to the nurses that you have? And I'm a realist. Look, African countries can't suddenly afford to pay their nurses the same as they could if they went to work in the US. But when I talk to nurses, yes, there are some nurses who want to move and migrate. There are some nurses who will never move and migrate. They stay at home. But actually, the majority of nurses say, look, I want to stay at home. Friends, family, my commitment to my country, my health system, my population. But what they say to me is that, do you know, it sort of feels that the hand on our back pushing us to move and migrate is stronger than the hand that's pulling us to stay in the country. So I say to the African countries, are you doing as much as you can to retain, to look after the nurses that you currently have? 1. 2, of course, recruit and educate more nurses. See nurses as not only health benefit, but the economic benefits that we've talked about as well. If nurses are moving overseas, make sure you get a really good deal. I'm sorry to be so crude about it as to call it a deal, but if nurses are moving and migrating, are you getting fair compensation for those nurses that you're losing? Are those high income countries properly? They're not just saying, look, there's a bit of learning and sharing that we're getting here. They're following it through with dollars as well. And the final point I would say, make sure that your nurses have career pathways that they can see. You know, all of us, whichever profession that we're in, we don't want to stay in the same job that we went into at the age of 20 or 25. When we're 40 or 50, we want to have the opportunity to progress and to be promoted. Are there good career progression opportunities in your countries? Do you have chief nursing officers that work in your government? When your health minister makes big announcements on health policy, does he have the chief nurse, the director of nursing, stood beside him? Because he or she recognises that actually, if they're going to make big changes to health in your country, 50-60% of the workforce are nurses, and they're absolutely reliant on them as well. And I think those showing the opportunity to progress your career, to be a leader, that governments and policymakers recognise nurses at top tables as well, it's an important sign to the current nurses that we have and future generations. But it also makes absolute sense. How can you make the best decisions for your country's healthcare system if you are not listening to experienced nurses?
And finally, Howard, what message do you want to share with nurses across Africa, I suppose even across the globe, who, despite daily challenges, continue to serve their communities with unwavering dedication?
Look, we're drawing to the close of International Nurses Day, and the most important thing for me on International Nurses Day is that individual nurses and nurses together celebrate the work that they do. It's a phenomenal profession. Nurses who, they change lives, they save lives every single day that they go to work. It's the opportunity to help people in some of their darkest moments, but then to see them grow, to heal. When we bring healing, we bring hope as well. And when we bring healing and we bring hope, these are essential ingredients for, I think, what we would all say are the basis, the foundations of good communities, of societies which value and respect, grow and develop as well. So I think nurses around the world, you are part of a very fantastic profession, and never lose sight of the differences that you make. We don't say thank you enough, and we should allow nurses to talk about what they do more, for that to be heard and to thank them. But thanks isn't enough, and I heard this a lot from nurses during the pandemic, who said, look, we people, they clapped, they applauded, they were on their balconies at the front doors, and they banged their pots as well, and we appreciate that, and we thank people for that. But public, please also make sure that your politicians know that when we clapped and when we banged our pots, we wanted more than just warm words. We wanted you to invest in our nurses, to give them good working conditions, to give them fair pay, to hold them within our health systems. Because I this is the analogy that I use sometimes. Like we have airbags in our car, and they're invisible. We know they're there, but we don't see them. But we know that in moments of danger, if we have a crash or a collision, they'll inflate and they'll be there. And the nursing workforce can be a bit like that. And the risk is we take them for granted. My worry is that as the world becomes a more difficult place, as health demands and challenges grow, as we see more conflicts, disasters, the impact of climate change, that if we don't properly invest in nurses now, that airbag, nursing, may not inflate to protect us when we most need it. And by God, are we going to need nurses over the next few years on our health systems as well. So even if you don't buy all of the warm words, if you just look at this from self-interest, your self-interest will also scream at you, we have to invest in the nursing workforce.
Howard, thank you so much. Firstly, for those beautiful set of words, but also for that wake-up call. I think more than anything else, this has given us something to think on and an opportunity to see how we can better invest into our healthcare system as civilians in the African continent. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
The voice of the CEO of International Council of Nurses, that is Howard Catton, joining us this evening, speaking to us about the realities of nurses. Today is International Nurses Day, and we had a conversation with, firstly, the rising crisis that we're seeing in the healthcare system. 56% of the healthcare system is made of nurses. 56%. Yet we're seeing them being treated as though they don't matter much. In 2030 it is, that South Africa is estimated to have a shortage of 60,000 nurses. I think with that being said, in all honesty, I have given myself room to think about this. How can we better invest? And perhaps yours is not a funding investment. Perhaps yours is to treat that local nurse with respect, with care, with love, to ensure that she stays in that position, because we need her most. And what we're going to be getting into is a call by Dr. Amelia Latuafu Hagman Mango, and she's the chief nurse officer at the World Health Organization. And this occasion, this is what she had to say concerning International Nurses Day 2025.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
A very happy International Nurses Day on behalf of everyone in the World Health Organization. Dear distinguished nurses all around the world, dear friends, colleagues, and valued partners, today we honor and celebrate the contributions millions of nurses make every day for all people everywhere. This year, we are delighted to be launching the State of the World's Nursing Report 2025 with policy recommendations to support, protect, and invest in nursing to drive better health outcomes, gender equity, and economic growth. We encourage you and early career nurses to engage with the report and actively lead in shaping the future of nursing. Given the economic challenge of today, I sincerely thank all the 194 member states of the WHO for continuing investment in nursing, including fair salary and working conditions, in order to retain talents to care for the population for the long term. Investment in nursing is an investment in people and the vulnerable. It is an investment in a healthier, safer, and fairer future for all. I am proud to be a nurse. Merci beaucoup, malo aupito. Thank you very much.
Jules, baby.
Nighttime radio, just the way you like it, on Channel Africa, where the night comes alive.
She just bust my brain. She say she want my sugar cane. She twist my dress. Yeah, you sweet girl. Yeah, you turn me up. And I'm in the grace on your body. So. Tell me what I done to you. All I did was got to love for you. Tell me am I the one for you. Tell me am I the one for you. Tell me if I'm the one for you. Tell me am I the one for you. Because of you I sing this song for you. You made me go Iskama, Iskele, Papa, Iskama, Iskele, Papa, I never told you that I never had no feelings. All this time I told you when you was kidding. Ooh, it's like you're killing me. That's like a baby. That's like a baby. That's like a baby. She got that ass like a baby. She got ass like a baby. Give her. She won't put it on the table. Give me some of my label. Give her. Every time she available.
Exclusive at ManjaExtra.com. Exclusive with NigerExtra.com.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform, it's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it.
It is 3 minutes past 11 p.m. Central African Time. Saint Gambian Dream, with this one titled In Te Borila. If you've just joined us, thank you so much for choosing us over the rest. This is Channel Africa, and we bring you that African perspective. Before that, we had Hallelujah coming in with that one titled Yelebe, taking us to Ethiopia and kickstarting off the triple play. One Day Call coming in with So Me So. Thank you again so much for choosing us over the rest. Heartlines with Sheila Ndikumana, and I did promise you a rather enthralling 2 hours, with the very first hour focusing on International Nurse Day, or International Nurses Day. In the second hour of the show, listen, I want to talk. I'm excited to specifically delve into this conversation, and I'm excited because this is something that's yet to happen to me. Pregnancy is often described as a time of radiance, the famous pregnancy glow being one of the most celebrated signs. For many expectant mothers, this glow comes with unexpected glitches, from breakouts to sensitivity to pigmentation to stretch marks. It's a reality that can leave many women feeling confused, especially when popular skincare solutions aren't always pregnancy safe. Now, joining us to, of course, demystify these changes and offer expert guidance is Dr. Judy Pretorius, a leading biomedical scientist and the founder of Biomedical Emporium, with her deep knowledge on regenerative skincare and pharmaceutical chemistry. She's here to share how expectant mothers can nurture their skin safely, confidently, and effectively. Dr. Judy, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Welcome to Hotlines.
Good evening, and good evening to all the listeners.
Let's start off with the term pregnancy glow, right? That has a lot of attention around it. What's the science behind this radiance that some women experience?
Well, the first thing is, especially in the first trimester, the pregnancy glow comes with all of the new fluctuations that your body embarks on. And it's typically the release of more estrogen, and it's the release of more progesterone hormone, and it's also the release of the HCG hormone, the pregnancy hormone. And with all of these hormonal expressions, it's as if there are so many things in your body just that comes to an absolute life. Your skin barrier just improves completely. It's as if there's a high growth factor release and a high peptide factor release in the epidermal layer of your skin. And it really looks like there's more life to your skin. And this typically happens more in the first trimester of pregnancy. And it's something that's tangible, it's something that people can physically see. And aside from that, there are some of the happy hormones like the serotonin hormones that's also released, and it's physically seen to whoever observes the fact that you are pregnant.
Dr. Judy, you said first trimester. Still 2 trimesters left?
Well, actually, another 3 to go, 40 weeks.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm emphasizing that first trimester is that that's the pregnancy glow that we're all happy about. But then as the pregnancy go on, and I like to encourage ladies who are currently pregnant or want to get full pregnant, who embarks on an IVF journey typically, to follow their pregnancy every week in a 7-day week. And here you can typically see things like, your progesterone starts to increase. And the reason why the hormone progesterone increases is because you start forming a placenta bag. And progesterone typically starts to form when you get the placenta bag, but it decreases the digestion. In other words, it decreases metabolism, so there's more food and nutrition available for the fetus. But along with all of this progesterone levels being higher, it also leads to something that increases sebum production. Now, sebum production is just a nice explanation of saying the oiliness of the skin starts to increase. So the moment the oiliness of the skin starts to increase, unfortunately, many pregnant women struggle then with what we call pregnancy acne, which is unfortunate, breakouts on the jawline or even on the T-panel of the skin. They struggle with acne even on the back and certain acne on the chest. So this can typically happen from the second and the third trimester onwards. And then, unfortunately, there's another thing that we call pregnancy mask or melasma. And to explain this a little bit better is many ladies, when they are pregnant, have this very defined brown line on their tummy. We call it the linea nigra line. But along with the linea nigra line, they start to struggle with pigmentation or complexion indifferences on the face as well, which is called pregnancy mask. And this is due to another hormone called MSH hormone, melanin stimulating hormone. And the melanin stimulating hormone purely starts to express when, our detoxifying organs are a little bit under stress, like the liver and the kidney, and even our body is a little bit under stress. And let's face it, when you are pregnant, it's kind of traumatic for your body because you're literally growing another human being in your body. So it's pulling all the nutrition from your cells, and it's pulling all sorts of powerful growth factors from your cells, purely just to grow that unborn baby, that fetus, and to keep it very, very healthy. And due to that, it starts to increase certain hormones, the melanin stimulating hormone, which already tells you it produces more melanin. And then that melanin starts to express on the skin, typically on the face, the neck area, and then of course the abdomen area, the brown line, the linea nigra line, which is also called melasma. So many ladies struggle with acne and melasma, and the last thing is that they struggle with is what we call a pregnancy dermatitis, or also known as pregnancy rash. And this basically means that during the process of going week by week, and the fetus start to grow and the skin starts to stretch, and the elasticity of the skin becomes more compromised and more vulnerable and so forth. And because of this, we get pregnancy rash, and inherently we also struggle with things like stretch marks and cellulite. So the human skin during pregnancy unfortunately goes through a whole metamorphosis. It's something to celebrate, but also it comes with perks, and in this particular case, some pitfalls as well.
Sure. Dr. Judy, you mentioned the depreciation of your metabolism as this placenta bag is growing. Is this part of the reasoning? Because I understand that, and this is something that I heard, is that part of our medicinal intake is the food we take in. Are we contributing to the excess melanin or all these other hormones in our body sort of overflowing, if you will? Because it's not every mother that would suffer with pregnancy rash or a pregnancy mask or even pregnancy acne. Is it a food thing?
Well, lifestyle and diet definitely plays a role. And you know what I find very interesting about pregnancy is that the same human being will never ever have exactly the same pregnancy. So a lady who was pregnant with a first child will never ever experience the exact same type of pregnancy, with a second and a third and a fourth child, for instance. Every single pregnancy is literally different. And lifestyle really plays a role. And, if we go to diet and so forth, most of the foods that we eat these days are genetically manipulated. I mean, you and I can typically go buy at the local store certain foods and fruits and vegetables and, keep it in the fridge for argument's sake. And we will find that, usually certain fruits and vegetables, they deteriorate and go down after 3 or 4 days normally. But now, these days, you find that these vegetables actually stay intact even after 2-3 weeks. And that just shows you that these foodstuffs are genetically manipulated, which means we can pose the question, do we really get all of the nutritional value that is theoretically projected? And perhaps the answer is not really. And many ladies struggle with, pregnancy cravings. Some ladies really, eat a lot of ice cubes, and some ladies love peanut butter, and some ladies love pineapple. And there's even some ladies, a lot of people joke, that love to eat certain minerals from cement, for argument's sake, because of the lack of magnesium. So lifestyle really plays a huge role. And one thing I'd like to emphasize, there are certain foods like sugar, for instance, that contribute more to inflammation. So sugar and carbohydrates and excess of a certain food type or nutrition can actually disrupt the whole balance, nutritional balance, and cause more inflammation. And the moment when our bodies are exposed to more inflammation, especially during pregnancy, our bodies will try to protect the fetus first. But unfortunately, we as mothers-to-be will struggle with things that express on the human skin, like the pregnancy rash or the melasma or the acne, unfortunately, purely because there is some external inflammation that we expose ourselves to that can be the primary cause as well.
Dr. Judy, let's talk about skincare products, right? A lot of them feel as though, and I'm saying this as an aspiring mother, so I've never been through the instance. I've never had an opportunity to say, okay, this is not good for my skin, or this is not good for me in this time as I go through my pregnancy. What are some of the product ranges, or what are some of the chemicals that mothers ought to look out for when buying and purchasing these skincare products?
Well, I can start by saying, even as a non-pregnant person, non-pregnant lady, the skincare industry is severely overwhelming. I mean, there are millions of products out there, and already just for us, it's so overwhelming what to buy and what not to buy. But there are a basic rule of thumb that we need to expose ourselves to, especially to moms that embark on an IVF journey or moms that just found out that they are pregnant. Certain skincare ingredients are, in fact, very, very harmful for a pregnant lady. Typically, one of the most powerful anti-aging ingredients known as vitamin A or retinol. Try to avoid retinol completely when you start with IVF or when you find out you are pregnant, because retinol or vitamin A is one of the ingredients that can actually trigger a miscarriage, number one, and number two, can cause fetal defects. There are other ingredients that can also trigger a miscarriage or irritation during pregnancy, and these are, if you buy a product, look at the ingredients at the back, salicylic acid, for instance, and even certain preservatives such as benzalkonium hydroxide, phenyl hexanol, ethyl hexyl glycerine, and I know I'm using big names, but some of these ingredients like the benzoates and so forth, ladies, please avoid. But the big ingredients that stand out for me, there are two of them. It's definitely the retinol and the salicylic acid. Try to avoid those completely during pregnancy, because it, like I said, can cause a fetal defect, cause irritation to the skin, and it even may be a trigger to a miscarriage.
You often recommend azelaic acid and niacinamide, I believe. Niacinamide for pregnancy. Let's talk about that. Where do we find that in skin range products? I mean, those are very specific ingredients or very specific chemicals, if you will.
Well, I do apologize for all these big words this late in the evening, but I'm going to try and break it down.
Yes.
Azelaic acid is one of those ingredients that, if I can explain the size of a molecule. A size of a molecule, in this particular case, azelaic acid or niacinamide, which is also, by the way, known as vitamin B3, also has a weight and a size. Just like me as Judy, I have a particular size or dimension, and I have a particular weight if I climb onto a scale. And molecules and ingredients are exactly the same. So there are weight and sizes to them. And when we look at ingredients for pregnancy specifically, we'd like to focus on ingredients that's fairly larger and bigger, because when you apply it on the skin, we don't really want some of these ingredients to penetrate into the bloodstream. So what we choose ingredients that's, number one, fairly safe during pregnancy, that's quite big, so it doesn't penetrate into the bloodstream. And then also, secondly, it's very calming for the skin, has very powerful antioxidant activities, and, really protect you against the environmental stresses. So azelaic acid typically really reduces and fights and combats that oiliness of the skin and even that redness that's associated with acne and breakouts and rosacea and so forth. And then niacinamide is just a nice way of explaining, listen, it's a vitamin B3, which is a very powerful antioxidant. It's a very powerful, skin brightening ingredient, and it also prevents pigmentation. But then there's some other beautiful ingredients that you can find in pregnancy skincare as well, like growth factors, for instance, and peptides and ceramides, and even some gentle acids like glycolic acid and lactic acid. And I know people are going to tell me, but Dr. Judy, surely acids must be dangerous during pregnancy. But it's not, because the human skin also has another name called an acid mantle. So our skin, my skin and your skin, it thrives in an acidic environment. So it really wants to be exposed to very, very powerful but yet gentle acids. And some of these acids are lactic acid and glycolic acid. And if I say lactic acid, just think of Cleopatra. Remember, she was the lady who bathed in milk, and actually she exposed her skin to lactic acid, and she experienced the smoothness of her skin, the softness of her skin, because it's new collagen contraction and new collagen synthesis in the skin, which really is a very, very powerful ingredient to prevent things like stretch marks as well. So there are very healthy things out there, but one should just be focused on that and try to embrace it and not let millions of skincare products overwhelm you too much.
Dr. Judy, you've just given me permission to bathe in milk. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
That statement. Let's look at these two harmful, retinol and salicylic acid, that you said that we should stay away from during pregnancy. Can these be found in food? Are they foods that we should be staying away from due to the presence of these two?
Well, luckily we have a term that we call PEL, permissible exposure limits. Now, basically what that means, there are certain things that even if you are pregnant, that you still can expose yourself to before it causes harm. And we call it the permissible exposure limit. Then, yes, sometimes we can expose ourselves to vitamin A and a little bit of salicylic acid and so forth. But at certain concentrations, it's still so low that it's actually going to cause any harm. So the SAPRA, for instance, have published, in their Medicines and Related Substances Act, or, Compounds Act, etc., what are the permissible exposure limits that a pregnant lady typically can expose herself to when she is pregnant. And vitamin A is actually one of the ingredients that one should take in when you're pregnant. So I know I sound very counterintuitive. The secret is just, what is the concentration? So the concentration should not be exceeded at a particular limit. So some of these pregnancy supplements actually do contain vitamin A, but it contains vitamin A levels at a very safe level. Now, let me give you an indication. There's a drug on the market or a medicine on the market that many people, when they struggle with acne, certain dermatologists or doctors like to put them on, and we call it isotretinoin. And unfortunately, I have to mention a few trade names, but I'm going to mention all the trade names. Roaccutane or Acnitane or Orotane or whatever the case may be. Now, a dermatologist would typically script someone who really struggles with acne with some of these drugs. Now, this particular drug is very dangerous for a lady to take when she embarks on either IVF or she falls pregnant, because that definitely can cause some form of a fetal defect. And sometimes when a young lady goes to a doctor and she struggles with acne, the first thing a medical doctor will actually ask her, listen, are you trying to fall pregnant? And they will actually script her not only with this isotretinoin, we call it the isotretinoin drug, medicine, but they'll also script her with a contraceptive, purely because they would like to make 100% sure that she does not fall pregnant when she uses a drug like this. And now why I say isotretinoin, because this is a form of vitamin A as well, but at a very, very, very high concentration. So you fall in both sides of the spectrum. You get certain supplements for pregnancy lady with vitamin A, but at a very low concentration that is permissible. And then something like an acne containing medicine at a very high concentration of vitamin A, but usually is scripted with a contraceptive to make 100% sure that that lady does not fall pregnant when she uses high concentrations of vitamin A.
Dr. Judy, can I just tell you that you have demystified a belief that, and I am shy to say this, but I and a crop of people had concerning contraceptives. Because we would see peers go to a dermatologist and then come back and then say that, listen, I'm on a contraceptive now. And we thought that that was the cure to the acne, whereas it wasn't in actual fact.
Yeah, it wasn't. It all basically comes down to, what can we do to systemically control sebum production, to get our estrogen levels and our progesterone levels just in absolute harmony and equilibrium. And once our hormones are in absolute balance and equilibrium with each other, then we control things like sebum production as well, the oiliness of the skin. And usually I tell people, if you see some expression on your skin, look at what happens when a mother takes a young baby to a pediatrician. That pediatrician looks in the ears, he looks in the eyes, he looks in the throats, and eventually the pediatrician examines the skin as well. And the human skin is a diagnostic organ. It's a very audible organ. So what happens if something is wrong systemically? It's chances is very likely that it's going to express on the human skin, because the human skin tells a story of what goes on in your body. And when you are pregnant, it usually will express on the human skin. It will tell a story. Is your body under stress? Are you producing more melanin hormone? Is your sebum production high? Is your progesterone levels very high? So the human skin is a really very, very audible organ. It tells a story what goes on inside systemically.
Dr. Judy, let's talk about elasticity. Right? And we sort of cited that the lack of or the loss of elasticity in the skin is the reason for stretch marks. Are there any practices, best practices that one could apply in order to minimize stretch marks during pregnancy?
Absolutely. And, to give you an example, I fell pregnant with twins. So I actually had a nickname. I literally looked like a whale during my pregnancy. I was huge, absolutely huge. And during the process of my pregnancy, I really decided to understand skin elasticity very well. And my skin and your skin has the capability to stretch twice in its size. And certain areas can actually stretch much more in comparison to other areas. So the abdomen, the skin around the abdomen stretches way more than the skin can stretch, typically on our arms and our legs and so forth. But the human skin, and I've mentioned something earlier, if our human skin could talk this evening and you actually interview the skin tonight and it can speak, it will actually tell you, listen, I need to be more hydrated and I need to be kept moist. And it's a very interesting thing that the human skin, whether you're a man or a woman, a child or an adult, doesn't matter. The human skin likes to be kept in a moist environment. And what I did during my pregnancy is I was very disciplined to make 100% sure every day after bathing or showering, I applied a type of occluding lotion or a tissue oil. And I kind of alternated between the two. But the fact of the matter remains, I really made a deliberate decision that I'm going to keep my skin moist and hydrated every single day. And my skin started to stretch week by week more and more and more. And I actually managed to carry my twins to term. Can you believe it? So I really grew completely and my skin stretched so much. And I can categorically and explicitly tell you that even, today, after giving birth to both my children, I don't have one single stretch marks at all. And this just proves that the human skin likes to be kept moist, whether you are pregnant or not. And to give you an idea, some young girls, when they go through puberty, start to develop, stretch marks on their breasts or even the abdomen areas. And even men, when they decide to go for bodybuilding, start to develop stretch marks on their arms or upper legs and so forth. And that just tells you that the human skin can stretch, but it needs help. It needs some aid, and some of this remedial or remedies available to help the skin stretch proportionately without any inflammation and so forth is just to keep your skin moisturized. It really loves to be moisturized because that helps cells to divide into 2, 4, 8 and 16 cells. It helps the skin to stretch and it helps to synthesize new collagen and elastin fibers. So keeping your skin hydrated and moisturized with a normal lotion or even a type of a tissue oil every single day, whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't really matter, but even more so when you are pregnant, is absolutely critical to prevent the formation of stretch marks.
Given that we're here, Dr. Judy, I want us to get into some of the home remedies that I've read on that women who are pregnant would use in order to combat skin issues. Coconut oil to moisturize dry skin and reduce appearance of stretch marks. Do you approve of that?
I do approve of that, but I'd like to take it a step further.
Yes.
You know, there are over 22,000 registered cosmetic ingredients on the planet. And a formulation scientist would typically say, you know, what can I do to design a carrier ingredient, a carrier moisturizer or a carrier serum? And then they will find ingredients like shea butter and coconut oil and even some glycerine. But all of these ingredients are what I call inactive ingredients. They are merely just a vehicle. So why don't I go and look for active ingredients out there? And if I say active ingredients, the ingredients that's going to make a difference, that's going to make an impact, that's going to really change the integrity and the characteristics of human skin. And those ingredients are typically vitamin E, those ingredients are peptides, those ingredients are ceramides and niacinamide, the vitamin B3, the panthenol, the vitamin B5. And I take all those beautiful active ingredients and I go mix it with coconut oil or even olive oil for that matter. And I start to apply that on my skin. And now all of a sudden, it's not just me occluding the skin and making my skin feel moisturized, but it's me that's making a deliberate decision to take a beautiful inactive ingredient delivery system, a vehicle to transport some of these beautiful active ingredients to the skin, to penetrate through the skin and stimulate what we call a biological and therapeutic response. So my answer to coconut oil is a definite thumbs up, but coconut oil, in my opinion, still just remains the inactive ingredient, but it's a beautiful vehicle to take the active ingredients to the human skin to stimulate a biological response.
Yeah. So Dr. Judy, we have quite a number of them, and you'll just let us know if these are also inactive ingredients that one would need to fuse with the correct kinds of ingredients. Aloe vera gel, and this to soothe irritated, sunburned skin.
Well, aloe vera for sure. Though, in my opinion, aloe vera will actually count as an active ingredient because aloe vera, you know, it's I suppose sunburn, you know, it's even an ingredient that's used in certain wound care products as well to reduce inflammation and, you know, these superficial type of burns that we get, even if you accidentally burn yourself, your fingers on a hot plate, for instance, aloe vera has really soothing, calming characteristics, anti-inflammatory characteristics. So can you imagine if you and I start to mix aloe vera with coconut oil? Aloe vera would be the active ingredient and the coconut the inactive, and those two ingredients would really make a beautiful type of serum, for instance.
Sure. And then oatmeal baths or masks, this to relieve itchiness, dryness, sensitivity.
Absolutely. Oatmeal definitely plays a role. In my opinion, I would categorize the oatmeal as more of an active ingredient. Earlier on, we spoke about, you know, pregnancy dermatitis, and this is actually something I experienced during pregnancy, not in my face, but on my tummy. So more toward the end, my last trimester, my tummy stretched, my abdomen skin stretched so much that it really started to itch so much. I typically had what we call this pregnancy rash. It's what we call a pruritus. You know, it itched so much. And things like a oatmeal mask or ingredients that contain oatmeal, if you apply that on the abdomen area, not only will it prevent stretch marks, but it will also calm the skin down and reduce that sensitivity and itchiness that many ladies start to experience.
Yeah. How about a yogurt mask? This to gently exfoliate and brighten skin while adding hydration.
Well, I know some listeners are going to shout at me now, but if we start, using some of the food that we buy, that we consume, and we start using those ingredients on our skin, we're not necessarily going to have that desired effect. And it's what I mentioned early on. We don't know how much or how food is actually genetically manipulated. That's the first thing. And we also don't know how certain food is preserved. Some of those preservatives, although it's okay for consuming, but it's not necessarily okay to apply on the human skin, because there are something that we call irritants, stimulants, and allergens. So we can apply certain things like yogurt or cucumber or even avocado, and we apply these things on our skin, and all of a sudden our skin starts to break out, and there's a redness, and there's a itchiness, and there's even swelling associated with that. And that's when we start to expose ourselves to things like irritants, stimulants, or allergens out there. And sometimes it's purely because our skin does not necessarily recognize certain ingredients, especially how food is preserved and so forth, and it kind of irritates the human skin a little bit, so much. So that's why I say, if you want to expose your skin to calming ingredients, try to stick to cosmetic type of products, because cosmetic products are usually preserved with preservatives that is gentle on the human skin, that's safe on the human skin, and is not necessarily going to cause a sensitivity, or irritation, or act as a stimulant. Whereas we start playing around with foods that we consume, it can have an effect that we have not necessarily expected.
Sure. Dr. Judy, with that statement, I'm going to put all of these in one category, and you're going to either completely approve or throw them in the dustbin, right? And these are, of course, ideas: a turmeric paste, a baking soda scrub, an apple cider vinegar toner, or coffee grounds to exfoliate.
Shoot, that was a tough one. The one that I really like is the turmeric, because the turmeric is, ingredient that really brightens the skin. And, people will not be surprised. It's not like in the cosmetic industry we don't use these ingredients. I promise you, cumin, turmeric, all of these ingredients, we use it. But there's just a very particular way how we like to purify these ingredients in the cosmetic industry and just make it very safe and gentle on the human skin. So turmeric is definitely perfect. Coffee, the one ingredient that comes out of coffee is typically caffeine. For pregnancy, I would say that's a no-no, because caffeine is one of the ingredients that we'd rather want to stay away from. However, caffeine is a beautiful ingredient in cosmetic products. When you had your baby and, you do struggle with a stretch mark here or there, and caffeine is used as the main ingredient in cosmetic products to, address already existing stretch marks and cellulite. Oh. So yes, yeah. And don't forget, one of the issues after you've given birth to a baby, most females, they don't talk about it, but one of the things that they really struggle with after giving birth is hair loss and hair thinning. I mean, you lose hair by, the hundreds. You just brush through, or you comb through your hair after a shower and so forth, and you just see, oh my goodness, I've lost so many hairs. And then, it's good to incorporate a caffeine type of shampoo or caffeine scalp serum and so forth to stimulate the follicles to start growing new hairs and so forth. So caffeine is a big plus for me after you've given birth. Turmeric is a big plus for me to prevent pigmentation, but unfortunately the rest I'm gonna cross it out.
Okay, and then lastly, the very last, this one is highly celebrated, highly recommended, right? This is tea tree oil to spot treat acne and reduce inflammation from breakouts.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to give you a big tick there. I love tea tree oil. I really do love tea tree oil. I would just ask any individual who's pregnant to do a quick, what we call a patch test. Now, a patch test is what you do in your inner arm, especially, you know, if you flip your arm over, the area where you don't really grow any hairs and so forth. You take a little bit of the serum that contains tea tree or a moisturizer that contains tea tree, and you just put it there in your inner arm, and you just keep a close eye on it, how your arm responds, you know, within, let's say, a half an hour, even an hour. And if it doesn't really irritate your skin that much, then it's an indication that it's going to be okay if you apply it on your face as well. But I fully agree. Tea tree is absolutely excellent to prevent any form of bacteria growing on the skin during pregnancy, because the bacteria, and I know this is late night and people are not going to remember this, but the typical bacteria that grows on human skin when you have acne is what we call Cuticum bacterium acnes. Now I know it's big words, but tea tree is one of the ingredients that will kill this organism, that will kill this bacteria. So it's highly inflammatory, anti-inflammatory, but also it terminates bacterial growth on the skin. So for me, it's a big plus, but first just check whether tea tree is not going to be an irritation or irritant or an allergen or a stimulant to the skin by doing a quick patch test in your arm to see that it's not going to irritate the skin. And if it doesn't, please feel free to use it, and it's also very, very safe to use during pregnancy.
Dr. Judy, let's talk about hydration. That's something you have emphasized, the appreciation of hydration for your skin, right? This is something we want, not just as pregnant women, but also just generally. Let's talk about how ingredients such as hyaluronic acid and ceramides support the skin's resilience during pregnancy.
Well, from an oral point of view, a lot of water intake is very important. And I know many ladies going to say, oh, but I don't like the taste of water. It's horrible. But it's not so bad if you maybe slice up a orange or a lemon or some cucumber or even strawberries, and you add it into like a big 5-liter jar of water, and every now and again you just go get yourself some of these, you know, infused type of water to just build in some of your oral and systemic hydration. That's very, very important. But also if we look at, you know, some topical hydration, some of the most beautiful ingredients that really helps us retain moisture in the skin is the very, very, very powerful ingredient hyaluronic acid. Now, you and I, we were born with hyaluronic acid in our skin, but unfortunately, as we grow older, especially, you know, after 25 and so forth, we lose natural collagen and elastin fibers in our skin, and along with that, we also lose hyaluronic acid. So at least it's not a battle completely lost. You can physically go out there and buy some more hyaluronic acid and apply it onto your skin. And typically you can get hyaluronic acid in serums and in moisturizers. And you know, there's no such a thing as overdosing on hyaluronic acid. You can use a serum with hyaluronic acid and a moisturizer with hyaluronic acid in the same go and the same treatment modality. And it's really, really very helpful. It plumps the skin. It retains moisture in the middle layer, the dermal layer of the skin. And it really hydrates and occludes the skin. And what ceramides does is, unfortunately, when we are pregnant and the skin starts to stretch and so forth, the barrier, in other words, literally the outer layer of the skin, is more compromised and it's more in tune to the environment. It's more sensitive to the environment and it's more vulnerable to the environment. And some of the ingredients like ceramides occludes the skin and it strengthens that outer barrier of the skin to make 100% sure that it's less vulnerable. And, you know, it reduces any environmental stressors impact on the skin, and it can not only just be used on the face, but it can be used literally over your whole body to calm it down and just strengthen the outer layer of the skin during pregnancy. So hyaluronic acid and ceramides are of course both active ingredients that can be used with our inactive ingredients, like we've mentioned before, like your coconut oils and your glycerines and your shea butters, but it's a definite must during pregnancy.
Dr. Judy, as we wrap up this conversation, let's talk about dry lips. Cracking, painful, sad, if you will, drying lips. I think we've addressed the majority of the skin. However, lips are a completely different breed on their own. How do we cater for them? What do we do for the skin on our lips?
Well, I'm going to share some extra information. There's we formulated a range called the Metanology range, and in that range we formulated a product, a nipple ointment actually. So when a mother starts to breastfeed and the nipple is kind of very sensitive and sore and the areola dries and it even bleeds a little bit and so forth, we formulated a occluding type of ointment that is, we call it like a synthetic lanolin. Now, synthetic lanolin or lanolin as we know it is something that is extracted from a sheep's wool. But some people are allergic to lanolin. So there's other ingredient that you can make in the lab that mimics lanolin, but you're not going to be allergic to it. So we call it synthetic lanolin. But it's very occluding. And then you start mixing it with ingredients like zinc. So zinc is one of those ingredients that not only protect our skin against the UV rays, the sun rays and so forth, but it also calms the skin down, and it's an ingredient that is used for wound care as well.
Yeah.
So many ladies told me, listen, Dr. Judy, did you know this nipple ointment that you made, we also use it on our lips, chapped lips.
Yeah.
And, because it's also mixed with vitamin E and so forth. But one can be on the lookout when you struggle with these chapped lips, dry lips, really dehydrated lips, to look out for ingredients in a lip balm or a lip moisturizer that contains a type of a synthetic lanolin with a vitamin E and a little bit of zinc, and even a little bit of ceramides and hyaluronic acid to plump it up and to occlude it a little bit more. And it's something that you can apply up to six times per day to really aid and help with that chafe and driedness, especially if you have a baby if you are pregnant during the winter seasons, drier weather conditions with less humidity in the air. That's definitely a big plus for me.
Dr. Judy, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for gearing us up. And the beauty about this conversation is that it will live lifelong on our platforms. So people will be able to go during the day, engage all these big words, and sort of take it in and apply this where necessary. Thank you again so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
That is the voice of biomedical scientist and the founder of Biomedical Emporium, Dr. Judy Pretorius, joining us on the line, speaking all things how to deal with your skin during pregnancy. Listen, I will echo, if you perhaps have pigmentation issues and you picked up a trick or two, perhaps it's worth digging deeper into. Perhaps you have the chapped lips, or maybe the pigment around your skin is not too healthy. You've got hyperpigmentation. You're noticing a dark neck. You're noticing darkness around the eye area. The mouth area. All of these things are worthy to look at in terms of just better gauging your skin, making sure that you are highly moisturized, and this of course reflecting a good hydration in the skin. It is 9 minutes before midnight in Central African time. Time flies when you're having fun. Let's get a bit of music. When we get back, chats with Morris Touch of the Afro Republic. He'll be letting us know what comes up next.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mukwenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Nighttime radio, just the way you like it, on Channel Africa, where the night comes alive.
Zochitika ndi madapiri kamlondola wazochitika pena paliponse.
Aphungu a nyumba ya malamulo mu dziko la Malawi akuchita zokambirana zawo pa zinthu zosiyanasiyana pambuyo pa nyumbayi kutsegulidwa masiku apitawo, ndipo kondwani Nyamasa ukali nafe pompano chiyambireni aphungu akukambirana masiku apitawo ndi zovuta ziti zomwe zachitika mnyumba imene ya malamulo.
Ndingathe kunena kuti State of National Address imene a President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera akhala kuipereka mnyumba ya malamulo imeneyi idautsa mpungwepungwe kwambiri nyumbayi, chifukwa pofika panopa mene ndikuyankhula pano ndiye kuti munafuna kubuka ndewu mnyumbayi. Leader of the house olemekezeka Richard Kimwendo Banda kuyimirira kuyankha koma mopsa mtima zimene amayankhula phungu oyimira ku Blantyre City South East Osama Suleiman kunena kuti sona imene adapereka president pa 14 February ikuonetsa kuti palibe chilichonse cha zero chimene chidaperekedwa kusona imeneyi, akuti imene ayichotse.
Zochitika ndipo madapiri lolemba mpaka lachisanu pa nthawi ya 7 koloko kufikira 8 koloko madzulo pa Channel Africa.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet.
Channel 802.
It is 4 minutes before the show comes to an end. It has been a pleasure keeping you company. Sheila Ndikumana on Heartlines between 10 and midnight in Central African time. That very last conversation you heard there, the voice of Dr. Judy Pretorius, who is a biomedical scientist and the founder of Biomedical Emporium. And she was just sharing us tips and tricks on how to take care of your skin during pregnancy. Dare I say, how to take care of your skin holistically. A few things that stood out for me was the realities of hydration, the importance of hydration, where you can find hydration, how some of our kitchen products aren't necessarily the most best suited for our skin as applicants. Maybe for digestion, yes, that's great, but something like coconut oil proving not to be as effective as one would think for hydration of the skin. And before that, we got into conversations with none other than the CEO of International Council of Nurses. That is Howard Catton, and he joined us on the line, and he was just letting us know, firstly, the importance of observing days like the 12th of May, and this being International Nurses Day, recognized yearly. And secondly, the reality and the plight of nurses, with this year's theme being Our Nurses, Our Future. Caring for nurses strengthens economies. I think he said something so powerful that I even wrote down. He said that care could be the new oil for our economies. I'm going to let that simmer. Have yourselves a splendid rest of your evening. Let's do this again tomorrow between 10 and midnight in Central African time. From the team and I, do take care. Up next, Mars Touch on the Afro Republic. I see that my English is trying to escape me. Good evening, Africa.